Let's talk about the Old Testament prophets. So if you're reading through the Bible for the first time or even the 100th time, there's this big section of scripture that separates the Psalms, which are a pretty easy read, and the New Testament, which seems to be an easier read. And it's the prophets of Israel. They're pretty long books, and they can be difficult to read. They seem very repetitive and kind of unnecessary to us modern readers at times. But today, as I was reading through Ezekiel, the Lord gave me a kind of a different perspective than I'd ever really seen before in the prophets. I think it's the perspective of understanding that God didn't have to include this in the Bible, yet He did. I mean, the books of Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Isaiah are longer than all of the gospel accounts that we get, and they're still in Scripture. They're seen as just as valuable to God. And one thing that I think is interesting about it is that He took the time to not only explain what He was going to do to the world and to nations because of their sin, but why. And furthermore, He even took the time to demonstrate their sin for the first place. He would do it just like a normal courtroom. He'd bring the defendant in, say, look at all these evil things they're doing, and then here's their punishment for doing those evil things. We see this in Ezekiel chapter 8. So Ezekiel was living in the exiles. After the book of Jeremiah and during Lamentations, the people of Israel, God's chosen nation, are carried off into exile in Babylon. And Ezekiel, at the beginning of the chapter, he gets a vision of the remaining people left in Jerusalem. And this is what it says. At 16, it says, "Then he," referring to God, "brought me into the inner courtyard of the Lord's temple. At the entrance to the sanctuary between the empty room and the bronze altar, there was about 25 men with their backs to the sanctuary of the Lord. They were facing east, bowing low to the ground, worshiping the sun. 'Have you seen this, son of man?' he asked. 'Is it nothing to the people of Judah that they commit these detestable sins, leading the whole nation into violence, thumbing their noses at me and provoking my anger? Therefore I will respond in fury. I will neither pity nor spare them, and although they cry for mercy, I will not listen.'" What I love about reading this is the fact that God is showing, hey, look at the sin, here's the consequences, here's my response. Something that's interesting to me is He could have just taken Ezekiel there, had Ezekiel prophesy against the people, or even not even done that. He could have just destroyed them. God could have destroyed Israel, not included it in what we consider to be our Bible. And then a lot of people would have a lot less dirt to throw on Him. Not that God did anything wrong in the prophets. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that many people accuse God of doing evil, and they point to the prophets without a fair understanding of what was actually happening during that point of history. God could have left it out, but He saw it as important. And I think He saw it as important because God realizes something about us that we often don't realize about ourselves. We are image bearers. We're supposed to reflect the glory of God here on earth. And the purpose of prophecy is not only to demonstrate God's sovereignty by showing that He can tell what's going to go on in the future, but also the fact that sin is so incredibly serious to God that it actually permanently separates us from Him. And He sets out with plans to destroy sin when we often just want to live in it. The prophets are necessary because they set up the reason for the cross that comes immediately after them in our traditional layout of the Bible. Thanks so much for watching this video. If it helped you get a better understanding of the prophets, then please leave a like. It really does help the channel, and I'll see you back here later as we continue to read through Scripture together.